is officially open, we're going to move ahead to a very important item on the agenda. We understand that the 4 pillars of WIMBIS are to inspire, empower, advocate, and connect. And one of the things that WIMBIS is passionate about is WIMBOARD, which is the women in board. So basically, we're looking at the women on boards. There are many powerful women. You will agree with me that in this room are some of the most powerful women in Africa. In fact, they just might be sitting beside you. So can we please put our hands together for ourselves? Now, WIMBOARD is certainly one of the advocacy programs of WIMBIS, and we'll be talking more about it shortly. But first, we have a video, so I'd like all attentions on the screen, please, as we take you through this video real quick.
We all know that the whole world is struggling when it comes to representation of women in leadership positions. WIMBIS has since November 2012, when it started the WIMBOARD program, decided we're not going to talk about it, we're going to do something about it. This initiative of WIMBIS, it's structured around 4 pillars. WIMBOARD Institute that focuses on training of women that are board ready, aspiring to be board members, and even women that are already on board. Nobody goes to school to become a board member. It's about your career. We have the very popular WIMBOARD mentoring program. One of the critical things that the WIMBOARD mentoring program does is that it brings seasoned directors to share their experience, and then it provides board simulation for the mentees. So the mentees get a feel of what it is like to be in the boardroom. WIMBOARD mentoring program has mentored at least 297 women. The third pillar is the WIMBOARD's database, just so that nobody has an excuse that where do we find the women? In the database, we have put in information about women that have been trained, that have certificates pertaining to being board ready or being independent board directors. We have information on their specific skills and competencies that you can train the women. You can have a database of the women. You can have a mentoring program. We all know that you need that advocacy. You need to inform people about why it is important to have women on boards. It is not an issue of charity. It's not an issue of women just making noise. It is a business issue. It's not just putting one woman. It is about the economy. Studies by McKinsey that the more women you have, up to about 30%, you will see the impact on the bottom line, that those companies financially outperform the companies without adequate gender diversity. Diversity is not a good to have. Diversity is a must have. Diversity has an impact on your bottom line.
Thank you. Norina Hurd says having women on boards is good for women, good for the economy, and good for the society, and that's a win-win-win, which is why we're excited with the work that WIMBOARD does. Now, this leads us to our next stage, which is, of course, our first plenary at the WIMBIS 21st Annual Conference. And we're going to be having a conversation about taking charge, the new face of leadership. This panel is brought to you by MasterCard. Thank you, MasterCard, for sponsoring this and being part of the work that WIMBIS is doing and ensuring that we have a seamless flow this year. Now, we have a few announcements as well as regarding the plenary.
Once the plenary is done, we're going to have questions and answers, and it's for a limited time. So once the plenary is going on, please prepare your questions and be very prompt and quick with them. This also goes out to those that are online. make sure that your questions are ready and good to go.
Without further ado, please join us as we welcome to lead us through the first plenary, the MD Procter & Gamble Nigeria, Mokutima Ajilaye, as she comes forward to join us. All right. Before Mokutima comes, somebody is going to do the actual introduction. Mokutima is one of our plenary members, but let's welcome the moderator, who is Mary Adenriola Ojulari. She will be introducing who our plenary members are, who our speakers are. So can we please put our hands together for our moderator, Mary Adenriola Ojulari, as she comes on stage to handle the first plenary session.
Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here. The plenary session is taking charge, the new phase of leadership. The first panelist is Moki Ajilaye, the MD Procter & Gamble. The next is Akuna Cook. She's joining us online. She's the CEO, founder of Next Narrative Africa. Is Akuna online? Hello, Akuna. Can you hear me? Is she joining? Okay. The next is Caroline Ebubo from All One. And we have a gentleman, Mahmoud Tuka, MD CEO of Ashgrove Group. I'm so proud of the founding members, because before we go into today's topic, taking charge, the new phase of leadership, we can all see practical examples that has just happened in the last few minutes here. The founding members have successfully handed over to the new board of trustees. And I think when you talk of what should be done to women, what should women do to empower more women? I think we should celebrate the founding members here this morning, because there is nothing more to do than what they have just displayed this morning. And I think if every organizations and the government, replicate this all across, then we would achieve gender parity in no time. Congratulations to the founding members, and I wish all the Board of Trustees success in their new roles. So, to go to the topic of today, you will all agree with me that women are powerful agents. The benefits of gender parity and inclusion in leadership and decision-making are becoming more generally recognized across all industries. According to the World Economic Forum, in 2021, the proportion of women in senior management rose globally to 31%, the highest ever recorded. 90% of companies worldwide have at least one woman in senior management roles, 26 of which are CEOs or managing directors. And 26 of CEOs and managing directors which are women, compared to 15% in 2019. The Fortune Global 500 reported an all-time high of 23 women CEOs in 2021. But despite this compelling evidence that diversity in senior management positions increases organization performance, the proportion of women in key leadership remains low in most organizations. Women face a unique set of challenges when progressing into senior leadership positions, including unconscious biases, scarcity of role models, and a peer group that continually shrink the more senior they become. This morning, I've got achievers, captains of industries who have rose to senior positions in their organizations, both in the private and public sectors, and they will share their stories, their successes, and the challenges in which they went through to get to where they got to. I would also like to explore what they do in their organizations and how have they been including women. What have they done particularly as they have achieved senior positions? So I would like to start with Akuna. Is Akuna here? I would like to start with Akuna because she's an accomplished diplomat. She's a policy advocate and an attorney. She serves as the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for the African Affairs in the Biden-Harris administration. And she's also the CEO, founder of Next Narrative Africa. She's joining us online. Akuna, can you hear me? Akuna?
Mary, yes.
Okay.
Are you able to hear me? I can hear you.
Okay, I can hear you now. I'm particularly interested in your story as an African American in a top leadership position in the US government. Could you please tell us your unique journey and the events that shaped your decision to become an advocate? Also, share some policies that you have put in place to ensure that more women can in future get more roles in government.
Thank you, Mary. And I wish I was there in Lagos with all of you. I'm here in Los Angeles where it is just 2 a.m., but there is nothing else that I thought was important, as important as joining all of you for WinBiz. So I just want to thank Hansatu and the entire WinBiz team for inviting me to be part of this conference. My journey started as the child of two Nigerian immigrants who were in the U.S. on Nigerian federal government scholarships, who were studying. And I was born in the United States, and as soon as my parents finished their studies, they returned to Nigeria, and I lived there until I was 6 years old. My father, however, has lived in Nigeria for most of my life and of his life, in part because of some of his frustrations with some of the biases that come with living in the United States, but primarily because of his strong belief in Nigeria and really wanting to be a part of building Nigeria in Africa. And he served in the government, was a member of the Nigerian House of Assembly, and really has inspired my journey on public service. In fact, it was during a visit when I was a student at Howard University to Nigeria to visit my father that I really sort of got bitten by the Africa bug, and really at that point decided that I was going to spend my career working on issues surrounding Africa and people of African descent. And so I, soon after graduating from the Kennedy School at Harvard University, joined the Diplomatic Corps, the U.S. Foreign Service, as a career Foreign Service officer. And I was there for 10 years, mostly working on Africa policy. And of course, that spans the range of issues that impact Africa and Africans, including economic development and African women. I left government after 10 years and pursued a law degree. I graduated from Yale Law School and then started to practice law. I then went into the nonprofit sector, starting an organization called the Black Economic Alliance that focuses on economic development and prosperity in Black communities. And so I spent, through that position, I really worked a lot on politics. And I know that a little bit later we'll talk a little bit about some of the challenges that women face in politics. But really they're the same challenges that we face in no matter what sector that we are in, which is ultimately I'm trying to convince people to trust us with their resources and to trust our vision. And so I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute. As you mentioned, after spending time away from government, I joined the Biden administration. First, I was on then candidate Biden and Harris campaign on a number of issues, and then I was called soon after the election to join the administration, going back to the State Department and working on Africa policy. And so I had the pleasure of leading Africa policy there for 18 months as part of the administration, and I actually left the administration 2 months ago to start Next Narrative Africa, which is a media production company focused on telling African stories for global impact. And part of that, which I think is very relevant to the topic that we're talking about today, is that I was really interested in shaping the images and representation that we see of Africa and Africans in the media. And part of that includes shaping the images and representation we see of African women in the media, because ultimately, I think culture eats strategy for breakfast. And we have to start by changing the ideas that people have in their minds about what women can do and what women are and what women are able to bring to the table in order to make it easier to get the policies and the laws in place to advance women. And so that has been the work that I've been up to. We are thinking through both the representation and images of women in media, and that will shape the laws and policies that we put in place to advance women across all sectors, including politics and business. You asked a bit about some of the policies that I think have been helpful to women, and I think one focusing on empowering women economically. Some of the speakers that have spoken before have mentioned how women are often better, I will say, stewards of financial resources, even though we struggle to gain the trust to get those financial resources. And I think we also need to stand accountable for supporting women. And so I would say that some of those challenges are widespread, but I think the solutions really are complex and in many ways, maybe a little bit complex, but in many ways are really just as simple as making the decision to empower women and hold them accountable for doing it.
Thank you, Akuna. I really like what you said about using the media, to shape the laws and policies. And I think the delegates here would pick on some things which I also picked on. You were called upon, but I would come back to you with that later. You mentioned quite a lot that you were called upon, and I would like to explore that in details. Why were you called upon? What leadership skills or what did you do in the past that ensured that you were called upon? So I'll hold that thought for a minute. I'll go to Moki from Procter & Gamble. So Moki's experience is quite different from Akuna. You have been 17 years at Procter & Gamble. So you've moved from manufacturing to marketing, and you're currently the managing director. In your experience, do you think that Procter & Gamble developed you to be the leader, or you had to get the development from elsewhere? And also, if you also touch on whether you feel that women are ready to take on leadership roles in Nigerian organizations today.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much to the management team of WIMBIZ for inviting me. It's such an honor to be here today. I know the conversations we are going to have over the next 2 days is part of the work that we need to do to move the needle towards gender equality. And this is honestly a very deeply passionate area for me, especially because I was raised by a woman. So, and I have seen her play the roles of both father and mother, so really I have been shaped by actually not seeing any kind of discrimination in my mindset. But then, of course, the society is not where we need it to be. So to just start answering your question, first of all, no, I did not start with P&G, but there is a reason why I have to clarify that. I've been in P&G 15 years, but I actually started in a different company in manufacturing because I have my background in engineering. So first of all, the move from manufacturing to marketing was actually initiated by me because I think I was lucky very early on to understand myself a bit more and realize the kind of things that drive me, that motivate me. So I'm someone that is very comfortable with ambiguity when things are a bit unpredictable. And being in manufacturing, where it's very structured, very process-driven, there are defined sets of inputs, and if you follow the right things, you should have the same set of outputs. And for me, I realized it wasn't what was exciting to me, and I really wanted to move to marketing, which is not really cut and dried because there are a lot of contextual nuances that change the strategies. So I actually asked to move in my previous company. They were not open to the idea because, one, I had zero experience. I didn't even have a background in marketing or social sciences. So they didn't understand why I wanted to move. So I did the move myself. I moved to Procter & Gamble and had to start again because P&G is a promote from within company, so you actually can't join it mid-career. So I think one of the things that I learned very early was to take a bet on myself and be courageous to say, you know what, I'm going to go and try it. If I don't try, I would never know if it's going to work or not. Now, did P&G, now that I've moved to 15 years, how have they helped me to get to where I am today? I think the first thing is they created the opportunities. In the first 13 years at Procter & Gamble, I didn't stay on a role on assignments more than 2 years. As soon as I got a bit comfortable with the role, I was moved to do something else. And the scope kept expanding as I was growing. So I started in marketing. So, of course, I moved from managing one brand to multiple brands, to multiple categories. And then from just managing in Nigeria to working across countries, working across cultures. And then at some point, I had to relocate and go and work in Europe, a completely different context, a different set of challenges. And these kept stretching me and helping me to grow. So I think the first thing is the opportunities were created. Some people took a bet on me and decided to invest. The second one is mentorship. I was just listening. I was very happy to keep hearing Wimbi's talk about mentorship a lot because really, it's important. There are a lot of people that have walked the path before. So there are some mistakes you don't have to make by yourself. Someone else has made it, and then just learn from the person. So I didn't realize the value of having a mentor, but how the company helped me was they actually matched me with a mentor. It was quite awkward at the beginning because it felt very forced. I remember the first set
did you say your company helped you?
Yeah, so they found mentors within the system,
mentor,
yes,
okay.
and then they matched it. So it was like a blind date. So I got there, it was quite awkward. There was no chemistry, but I learned something. Sometimes forget about the chemistry. What is your objective? And I was very clear what I wanted to learn from her. It was a lady. And it really helped me because she was a safe space to go and ask her questions that I wouldn't ask my manager. So that mentorship helped early on in my career and gave me the courage to take on some of the assignments. I will talk about them later. Then the third was, again, as I continued to grow, I think about the 8-year mark, I was again assigned a sponsor. And this time, it was a man. And I really appreciated I got a very different view. And this is where I want to make the point. Of course, we talk about representation, and it is great to be mentored by women. But also, women need to be open to being mentored by men because they bring a completely different perspective. Yeah, thank you. And men as well need to be open to mentoring women. Some men say, oh, no, the women, I don't understand them. They have a lot of drama. No, we don't. We actually have the same objectives. We want to move forward. We want to get to the top. It's as simple as that. So the men need to be open as well to sponsoring women, to betting their badges on them and say, okay, I'm going to put my neck out for this person. So that's what really, really helped at the beginning.
Okay, thank you very much. Things to take from you. Your company identified a mentor for you, And then later on in your career, they identified a sponsor. So those are key things. So let's take a man's perspective. Mahmoud, I know because of conversations with you that you have 12 sisters, so you are experienced with, with living and working with ladies. I want to understand, did that shape your perspective when it comes to women leadership, when you started working? Did that background shape how you felt about ladies because you lived with them? And also, if you touch on how many women sit at your board or are in leadership in ESCO in your company? And if you just let us also understand, because I mentioned your sisters, because I want you to give me a background of your careers leading to your board.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies, and thank you to the Wimbis team for inviting me. I'm in great company. Lovely to see so many familiar faces. Indeed, I come from a family of 19. I have 12 sisters, 6 brothers. I like to say I come from a proper Nigerian family. A Fulani mother, Efik stepmother, Yoruba stepmother, Hausa stepmother. So I think that background shaped me, certainly. My formative years in the UK, so grew up surrounded by sisters. There's a story in the family that my naming ceremony was the best party ever held. After my brother was born, came 5 girls, and then eventually Mahmoud arrived. So the old man was celebrating, yes, finally another son. I'm proud of the sisters that I have. I have 12 amazing sisters, lawyers, accountants, doctors, engineers, successful women. So I think I'm the least person that needs to be convinced about the capacity of women, what they can do. My career started off in Port Harcourt in 1994. I worked for an oil service company. And even at that point, my life was impacted by a woman. Her name was Grace. She was the secretary, confidential secretary of my general manager. So here I was, a young firebrand. I came out of the UK, gusto, but I needed to learn how to write memos. Simple thing. They don't teach you that in school. How do you address your boss? How do you get his attention? How do you manage him? She was bilingual French. And also, again, it taught me even how to improve my French. Something as simple as when you write a letter, you sign off in English, yours faithfully. French speakers will tell you that to say yours faithfully, it's veuillez accepter, monsieur, l'expression de mes sentiments les plus distingués. It's floral, it's long, it's very formal. So if somebody is not mentoring you, teaching you, you won't learn this. So as I progressed in my career, I think, yes, having grown up with women, it sort of gives you a balance, having understanding that women are just as good. At some point, I had 2 sisters working for Schlumberger. People thought my old man had an investment in the company. Actually, no, simply because he had educated daughters that these companies were very quick to grab. And fast forward because of time, I remember when I joined Eterna PLC, so my career has been in oil and gas, oil servicing, maritime sectors. I was quite an adventurous young man. Ebisan over there, I met in 1994 when I was working for Alustul Construction. She was at Chevron. So I've done many things. I'm very privileged. And I think one of the things I learned was people bet on me at a young age. At 21, I was already working with management. At 37, I was the youngest CEO of a publicly quoted company when I joined Eterna. And when I joined Eterna, one thing I learned, what I realized was that the entire management team were made up of men. By the time I left, the CFO was a lady, the head of the company secretary was a lady, and the head of HR was a lady. And these 3 female colleagues, these were mission-critical roles who reported to the CEO. So for me, it was important to get women in the right positions of leadership because they could then, one, give me the best of advice, but more importantly, encourage aspirational women to join the company. Because sometimes you want to employ very, very intelligent young ladies. They're wondering, well, I don't see any women at the top. Where's my career path? How do I get there? So I think we also have responsibilities as CEOs when we get to the top to ensure that there is a balance at the top, and also that we actually give women very strategic positions. That's the only way forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Just another question very quickly. You know, generally, when I speak to some men, you know, they think that inclusion and diversity is nice to have. In your own opinion, what do you think we can do to promote diversity and increase inclusion in the workplace, Nigeria-wide?
I've seen it from many perspectives. I served on the board of a French company for 8 years as an independent, non-executive director. This is a quoted company. They were quoted on the Euronext, on the French exchange. By French law then, 40% of board members had to be women. So I saw a transition from a male board where we had then to transition to 40%. So by law, you can do it. If we go with the expression that what doesn't get measured doesn't get done, then let's put it as a KPI for men in leadership. You know, we have corporate governance ratings, we have sustainability indexes and all of these things. Add diversity, make it a CEO's KPI, especially when it comes to inclusion of women at senior management and at board leadership.
Thank you. Caroline, I'll come to you. You work in the energy sector, and I know that in the energy sector we have few women in leadership. I want to know your journey and how you became the CEO of All One.
Well, first of all, good morning, everyone. It's such an honor being here. Indeed, I am the CEO of All One, but I just joined about 2 months ago. And it's quite an honor starting my time in Nigeria with such an amazing event. So thank you for inviting me and being part of this panel. So it's been quite a journey getting to where I am now. There's been a lot of different experiences that have led me to this current position. If I were to go back to the very beginning, for instance, as you can hear, I have an accent. If I were to go back to the very beginning, one thing that I knew was that I was going to work on the international scene. So very early on, I was just, totally determined to make sure that I would be fluent in English. So here I was telling my family, after high school, let me go and spend a year abroad just to learn English. And my mother, who's been amazing and was actually here today, put together all of the funds that she could and said, okay, you're asking a lot, but we're going to make it happen. And here I was, just with an idea, knowing that this would help me in the future. And this is how I ended up in the US. And again, talking about taking decisions that at this stage you're not too sure why, but eventually they will lead you to the next step. After working and studying in the US, I decided, okay, I now have the international, gravitas that I want. I want to go back to Africa, and I want to do it working at the African Development Bank. So that was my very first entry with regards to infrastructure. At the time, I remember people looking at me saying, you're in New York, in the financial sector, but you want to go back to Africa. And I said, yes, very much so. This is where it's happening, and this is where we're going to make it happen. So here I was going. And interestingly enough, for a little anecdote, a few years later, there was the subprime crisis, and people who were looking at me as if I were a fool back when I was leaving now started calling and said, what are some of the opportunities? So here's how I got into the infrastructure sector. At the African Development Bank, it was quite an exciting time. We spoke earlier about Mrs. Cecilia Akintominde. We'll get to talk about that later, but talk about amazing mentors. This was a lady at the African Development Bank at the time who was Secretary General, whose door was always open. So when I heard earlier the amazing mentorship she's been providing to people, I was not surprised. Because here we were, young professionals with big dreams, great ambitions, but still learning the ropes, and we had people such as her looking out for us. So again, at the African Development Bank, working on infrastructure, I had the opportunity of working on some of the most structuring key deals in Africa in the energy sector. Mention it, generation, transmission. It was quite an amazing time to be exposed to some of Africa's main deals. as an investment officer there, I had direct lines to many ministers, being able to just help them and help the country shape their energy infrastructure plans. So this was definitely a defining moment in my career, helping me get where I was. But moving on, after that, I was then able to now move to a different sector in the philanthropy world, where I was now looking more at the off-grid sector and looking at renewable energy, energy access, and matters that are so key and so important for us Africans, and as they are, at the heart of helping us reach our development goals. Fast forward again, after many years working in the off-grid sector, came this opportunity to join now Allon. For those who do not know, Allon is actually an impact investing fund that invests in innovation in the renewable energy sector. And this is very interesting because, yes, we do renewable energy, but it's actually a Shell-sponsored or a Shell-launched in a renewable energy fund that, as we all know, when it comes to looking forward, renewable energy is a big part of the future when it comes to energy. So it's been great to be able to have such a transition and evolution, and now working with an oil giant who's also, oil and gas giant, who's also very aware of the renewable energy challenges and already taking the steps required to ensure that they're also part of this story.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Caroline. Amazing story. Akuna, are you online? Akuna, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Being that you've just finished with the Biden Harris administration, I wanted to you to share your thoughts on the bill rejected in Nigeria recently. What do you think? Do you think that these bills would have created the desired result for gender inclusivity?
Yeah, so just to go back to some of the comments that I was making earlier, I think the bills that you're talking about that would, for example, require a certain percentage of women in government, requiring equality, or in some cases, if we want to call it equity, which have two different definitions, but ultimately are trying to get at the same goals of diversity. Those bills all would be helpful, but ultimately, as we are working to try to shape policy and law, it is very difficult to do that if we haven't already changed perceptions of women to begin with. Because the lawmakers and the policy people, and frankly, even all of us who are voters or supporting those politicians and policymakers, have to be convinced that those laws are important to have in the first place. And so that is why I was talking about the importance of changing perceptions and images of women, and that does really begin in popular culture. And so, for example, if you are consuming television and film and books that don't show women being in positions of power and positions of leadership, who have agency, who can be trusted with resources, that is an important part of shaping how those lawmakers will then see the laws that they need to put in place. Once you have that, it is very simple, as others have mentioned. You can institute laws that require a certain percentage, whether that be 40%. Frankly, I think 50% is the number it should be. We are half the population. And then you can hold people accountable for meeting those expectations. But it is very difficult to get the laws and policies in place if you haven't already done the groundwork of shaping the culture and perceptions. And so I think that is the first order of business. But to answer your question directly, yes, those laws would be very effective if they are instituted, but they cannot be instituted if we don't do the groundwork of ensuring that we all, including women, men and women, are clear that it is imperative that we put women in positions of power in the first place.
Thank you very much. Earlier, you mentioned that you were called upon severally because we have a diverse delegate here. There's some young people and then some people in middle management. So I would like to know, when you said you were called upon severally, in your opinion, why did you think you were called upon?
So I think it's been a few things. Early on, I really decided that I would work on things that I was passionate about. And because I have always worked on issues and projects, initiatives that I'm passionate about, I work very, very hard. And I think that is just one of the things that you need to be able to do if you're going to be successful in any a career or any endeavor. But I also think it's important, as part of working hard, that you build a robust network. People need to they need to know what you can do just as you are, able and building those skills. So that means building a robust network of peers, robust network of mentors, and robust network of sponsors. Every opportunity that I have gotten along my career from the very beginning have been because somebody, either a peer or a sponsor or mentor, has spoken my name in rooms that I wasn't in. And that is because I have really tried, to make sure that I do good work, but also to make sure that I'm adding value to other people, whether they be my peers or whether they be people who are older than me or more senior than me, and also the people that are more junior to you. Because in fact, and many of us who are in leadership positions know that it is our teams and the people who are junior to us who are often the keys to our success. And so I think that it is both your ability to work on things that will, inspire you to be awake at 2:30 in the morning and passionately speaking about them, but also to ensure that you are adding value in every room that you are in and in every conversation that you have. Because oftentimes I find that when young people come to me now and ask for advice, they almost assume that they're not bringing anything to that conversation, that it is one way, when in fact, it is often two-way. And so when I go to mentors and sponsors of mine now, or investors and other people who support me, I go in there looking to add as much value to them as they are giving to me. And whether that be, helping them with some aspect of their business or making connections or whatever it is, I think it is always walking into conversations with people at your level, above and below you, wanting to help them, and then that will inspire them to want to help you. And so I think it really is those two things that will make sure that when opportunities come up, people will speak your name and offer you those opportunities.
Thank you, Akuna. I've heard networking, adding value, being passionate, and you also mentioned mentoring and sponsors, which Muki mentioned earlier. Muki, you are now the managing director. I want to ask you specifically, what are you doing in Procter & Gamble for women? Someone has sponsored you, mentored you. What practical things are you doing to also ensure that there are more women in leadership in your company?
So I'll share examples from P&G, but I think as I'm sharing the examples, it's also a call to other companies to, if there's anything that I share that is worth reapplying, to actually reapply them. So I think the first starts with how we recruit. And I was very happy when Akunda was mentioning 50-50. Actually, from the point of recruitment, we always aim to have 50-50. Actually, in some functions where we've seen that we are farther away from the 50-50 at mid-management, we actually skew it more towards 60 or 70, and this is in sales and in manufacturing, where we realize that women drop off faster. So generally it's 50-50, but in certain functions it's actually higher. Because again, I'd mentioned P&G is a bit peculiar in terms of we do promote from within. So if you don't even get women in at the beginning, there's nobody to promote going forward. So that's the first thing that we do in terms of recruitment. But then, honestly, that's not where the biggest challenge is. The truth is women start dropping off when their life stage changes. So that's really the critical part. And I loved what Mahmoud was talking about, putting the KPI. So actually, in P&G, so whether it's Nigeria or any other of our markets, gender diversity or equality and inclusion, much broader, is not just an HR function deliverable. It's actually on my scorecard, it's on the scorecard of every leader. And I know when we say scorecard, it makes it sound like it's very mechanical. No, but the truth is, if you don't track, you won't even know if you are making progress. And in the tracking, you realize when people start dropping off, when you start losing them, and then you ask the question, why? And then design policies to help them stay. So that's the intent of the tracking, because I know when we say this, people might feel, okay, it's just ticking the box. No, we don't just tick the box. Women are not just tick the box. So if you see a woman in a position, she actually deserves to be there. But the tracking allows us to know what progress we are making. So, and there we also realize that first pregnancy or first maternity leave, they come back, and this is where women struggle. So what have we done differently? One is we have an extended maternity leave period. So,
Great. That's good.
So beyond the statutory 4 months that the law allows, you can take an additional 2 months, so 6 months, and then when you come back, we allow you to either resume an hour earlier or leave. Resume an hour later or leave 1 hour earlier. Again, to go back to the baby, etc. We have nursing rooms for breastfeeding mothers. So these are very practical things.
Well done.
And as long as your baby is still under age 1, if you need to travel for especially an international trip, we support by paying for a nanny at the destination as well. Yeah.
Well done. Well done. Well done.
So, and this has really helped. So these are the practical ones. But I think beyond the practical things is the return to work assignments. So when women are returning from maternity leave, we make sure that they're in ramp-up roles because they need to catch up. So it's not the time to give them a role that's, say, okay, something that, if she makes a mistake, it doesn't matter. No, we actually then support them to go into roles that would enable them catch up. And there's something that we just introduced a year ago, and we call it Share the Care, which is we give 8 weeks paternity leave to fathers. Yes.
Very nice.
And you would think, how does this help women?
Everyone will want to work in Procter & Gamble now.
So you wonder, how does this help women? Honestly, I think the first one is a statement to society to say that caregiving is not the exclusive responsibility of the mother. And
correct.
Yes. So there's no better way than doing this than to actually say, men, go on 8 weeks. And the men in the organization have been taking it. I think one of them is here somewhere. They take it. And then the second thing is when the men take that time off, honestly, they're more empathetic when they return. Because when a woman says, oh, I need to take my child for immunization, or she's coming in a bit groggy because she didn't sleep the previous night, somehow they are actually a bit more understanding.
Yeah.
So these are the practical things.
Thank you very much. Let's just go very... Thank you so much. I'm sure every delegate here will want to work with Procter & Gamble. Mahmoud, very quickly, I want to quickly ask you that because we are partners in this gender inclusivity, it is important for men to also understand this. Do you think that the men in your circle genuinely understand and they're ready to support and collaborate with women?
Thank you. Before I answer you, I have a very smart 20-year-old daughter. I think I'm going to send her to Procter & Gamble. Yes. Very inspiring. I think you talk about men, I would say maybe men in leadership. I think as men in leadership, we have a responsibility to educate those coming through, to understand what it means, because not everybody would have had the opportunity. Either for me, I'm privileged, I have 11 sisters, 12 sisters, so I've engaged with women. Not everybody has that. So to understand that the opposite sex is they're just equally as competent as you are. So I think it behoves on men in leadership. And I believe that today, with a lot of training that's given to executives, and it's very clear, diversity, inclusion and so on, I believe that the working world, men are more accepting of women in leadership, women providing roles as independent non-executive directors, as advisors. I can speak for myself. Look, I remember at Eternal when we went through a transformation project. If I can talk about corporate governance today and I understand risk management, it's because of Tomi Adepoju at KPMG. If we did strategy with KPMG, it was Yetunde Kanu. Deal advisory, Bukola and Ijoma, all great teams led by great women. My CFO was a lady. And not only was she a competent accountant, but again, because she had developed an excellent reputation in the financial services market. As a growing company...
But the question is, do you think that men understand that we are capable, you know?
I believe men in leadership do. And it behoves on us to ensure that those who are coming behind us are also trained to understand that.
So what are you doing as a man to ensure that you are also mentoring junior men to also understand that, you know, we are all...
Actions speak louder than words.
Okay.
So by the time you appoint people into leadership positions, they believe it.
Okay. I think...
We've unfortunately run out of time. I
Okay.
apologize. Have you enjoyed this session? Okay, this is one of the amazing things that Wimbiz brings to you. And who knows, we just might be having a repeat session on the app. So please download the Wimbiz app. We have space for 2 questions, one online and one physically. So the first person to walk to the microphone has it. The first person to walk to the microphone.
There is a microphone. She's there.
Thank you.
We have one person already.
One person
Thank
online.
you. We have one person already.
We're so sorry. We apologize.
Thank you.
We're so sorry.
Okay, so can we make it very short and sweet? Thank you.
Thank you so much for today. It's actually expiring. My name is Blessing Gerald. My question goes to Mrs. More. I'm trying to pronounce her name though.
Just go ahead with your question. Don't worry.
She said something that she was into. She was in an area of in that department, but she realized that she's actually good in marketing. So you had to switch to just go to marketing. Now, my direct question is, what did you do aside from the matching your company gave to you? What did you do to upskill your work and to make you better? What do you do to push yourself to the next level? Then my second question is, are you open to mentorship? Because that's my angle.
Well, we've run out. Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
So, Mrs. Mokutima, over to you.
I'll try to keep it very short.
Yes, please.
So, what did I do when I moved? First, I didn't know I was good at marketing. I just knew I wanted to do something else. And marketing looked like it. So I wasn't even sure I could do it to start with. So the first thing I did, believe it or not, is I went to buy a book. Now, whether the book really helped me is questionable, but at least it gave me a very faint idea of what brand management was about. And then when I started, I got we call it body system in P&G, but actually a friend, someone that was already in marketing, to literally tell me what the acronyms meant, what these things meant. So I spent time in actually learning. I think that was extremely important. But beyond that, it's more the attitude. It took a lot of courage to go to something that I didn't know. And I had to also have courage to demand for what I needed to succeed. I just share one example. So 2 years into the marketing career, I was asked to do a role. I came back from maternity leave, my first maternity leave, to do a role that did not exist in Nigeria. It was the first time we were starting that function. So, and I could have just stumbled my way through, but then we had someone do something similar in Egypt. So I actually asked that I want to go understudy that person, and I was allowed to go to Cairo for 2 weeks to go work with her. So I think being courageous to ask for what you need, building personal connections with people. And this was what Akuna was saying. And it's peers. Building connections is not just about the mentors or the sponsors. Your peers are extremely valuable because they can help you. They're the ones that have done the job before. So those were the things that I did. It wasn't something really big. I didn't go to do a course. It was just the everyday work and really learning to ask for help and lean on people that have done it before. And to your second question, yes, I'm open to mentoring.
Okay, we have one more question from the online community.
Who is this directed to? Okay.
Any of the members of the panel can take it.
So the question goes, from my observation, women of color seem to thrive more in politics and high-profile careers. in the Western world than in Nigeria. Why do you think that is?
I think we should give that to Akuna.
So I would say I'm not sure that's true. I think that women, certainly here in the United States, are struggling just like women across Africa. In fact, there are some African countries where we have better representation of women than in the West. I think it is a global problem, particularly in politics. And I think part of the challenge, I said, is, as I was saying, is when people have an image in their mind of who should be a political leader, it is often not a woman. And they don't have in their minds what a woman in leadership, particularly political leadership, looks like. And so it is a matter of a real education that really, as I've said a couple times, we really do need to start thinking critically about how we present women in popular culture. Because if we continue to present women in popular culture as not having agency, not having voices, not having opinions unless they're attached to men, and having, there was a woman at a panel here in LA yesterday that just mentioned that she is a producer here in Hollywood, and that part of why she began producing is that she was an agent at one of the biggest agencies in the world, and only 20% of the roles that she came across had women in speaking roles that had any sort of, agency, and so that was not very long ago. So this is a global issue, and if we don't start to systematically think about the way that we represent women, whether that be in African media, whether that be in Western media, that's going to be the first thing that needs to happen, is making those changes. And then being conscious as voters, or whether you are a political donor, that you are aware of your own biases, because oftentimes those biases that we have, whether it's men and women, often impede our ability to see women as capable political leaders. And so I think it is a worldwide problem. And I frankly think that this is an area where Africans can show themselves to be innovators in the space. Because as I said, there are a number of African countries such as Rwanda where we have much better representation than in other parts of the world. And so I think it's a global problem. I think we're all part of the solution, and I think it is urgent, because when we do have women in these positions of power, we have much better policy outcomes.
Thank you very much, Akuna. In closing, I would like Caroline to quickly tell us how women can support other women and what strategies can work well in promoting women inclusion in top leadership.
All right, thank you very much. Maybe I'll take a very practical example, for instance, in terms of the lens we put when we invest in projects. I really like the example given earlier by my co-panelists with regards to KPIs, because that's not just about KPIs within your corporations, but when we actually invest in projects, we make it very clear to our investees that we want to make sure women are fully on board. So we actually ask to see numbers. How many women do you employ? And not only in specific categories, within the actual marketing, communication, but maybe make sure it's wider. What about STEM? Technology, innovation, chemistry, engineering, and then also at the board level, how many women are on your board? We actually make it a condition. Many times you'll meet investees who are surprised and they'll tell you, but 50% is a lot. And we say, no, 50% is the target, and we're going to help you achieve it. So being unapologetic about the need for women to be fully represented, we as an investor are taking a very determined and intentional pathway to ensuring the companies we invest in realize that it's not just a ludicrous goal. It is definitely a real impact, real targets that will help us get to the impact that we need.
Thank you very much. Thank you, panelists. I think you would agree with me that the panelists have done a very great job in highlighting the roles of various stakeholders in gender inclusion. They've explored ways in their various organizations which they have been including women in leadership. One thing I would leave us with is that, according to Audre Lorde, I am not free while any woman is unfree, even when our shackles are very different from my own. So, until the gender equality is 50-50, every single woman here should continue to strive and push every woman for excellence. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed.
Thank you very much. What a powerful way to wrap up our first plenary. And if you'd agree with me, this is just, the tip of the iceberg. We're in for a treat here at the 21st Annual Conference. I'd like to welcome Mr. Niyi Yusuf, who is a member of the Board of Trustees, Wimbiz, and also a boardroom guru, to join us as we take photographs. And please, members of the audience, feel free to take pictures of them as well. Post on Twitter, Instagram, and tag us at WimbizNG on Instagram and Wimbiz on all social media platforms. We'd like to ask our panelists to please rise for a photograph. Thank you very much. If this is the first panel session of the day, the first panel session for now, imagine what lies ahead. Isn't it exciting to think of the amazing content that we have to glean from? So I hope everyone is alert, prepared, and ready, because your lives will be transformed after this. Before we go on break, let's welcome Ms. Toyin Olawoye on stage. She has a special assignment, I hear. So can we please welcome her to join us on stage?
Hello and good morning. My name is Larata and I'm going to be your virtual anchor for today. We are at the Wimbiz.
It's a short assignment, and this is a timely time to do it. The hall is fuller. Please, may I ask anyone who has ever served on the Executive Council, if you're here, please come on stage. If you've been EC council members, we've had quite a few of them over the years. They have been with us. They have spent so much time. They've committed. They sweated with us. So please come up. Come up, EC members. I can see you. I don't want to call your names. You know yourselves. Come up. You helped us to get here. Please come up quickly. We're going to take a photograph. We want to, first of all, recognize you, and we're going to ask our conference chairperson to please come up. We'd like to take a picture with you. And our dear auntie, Lady Ebru, please could you come up for a photo? Please. These are some women that we were in trenches with, the founders over the years, different terms, 4 terms of ECs, and they served at various times. So please, can we give them a resounding, I want them to hear in the US. I want Akuna to hear. Thank you. Please go, spread out, go down that way. Please spread out. These are the women that were with us through thick and thin, sleepless nights, sweat and tears. But we got here. Thank you so much. Quickly. Where is okay.
Photographers, is it okay this way? Okay.
Let's give them a round of applause again. Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Can I spot anyone else? Thank you very much. Thank you so much. We love you. We appreciate you. Thank you. Before Auntie leaves, Lady Ibru, and before our conference chair leaves, I'm going to ask the founders, let's take a picture. We're just taking a picture. The tea break is officially there. Right? You can announce. Please, the founders that are here, please let's just take a picture. Thank you.
I feel so blessed.
We also want to acknowledge our partners and sponsors. Thank you to everyone who has seen the value that Wimbies brings and has chosen to be a part of it. We want to say a very big thank you to our platinum sponsors. We have Prudent Group. Thank you so much for joining us and for being a part of making sure that this